Good morning or afternoon, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute as we watch participants joining us. Hey, again, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are today. Welcome to the webinar on the Impacts That Count campaign to promote high school equivalency credentialing programs. My name is Patricia Tyler. I am the Executive Director of the National Association for State Directors of Adult Education, which we call NASDA, and we are delighted to be working with COABE on the Impacts That Count campaign and resources for you. As always, we are grateful to the folks at Full Capacity Marketing for working with us on this campaign also. For some time, Sharon, Bonnie, and I have been talking about the need to create some tools to help our state and local adult education leaders promote the quality and successes of their high school equivalency preparation programs. Raising awareness of your programs is important and very timely, as a host of new vendors of high school diplomas have entered the field, bringing an array of information to the public and stakeholders. Amidst this backdrop, we wanted to provide some options that you can use for your program outreach. Next slide, please. So we have with us today, we have Sharon Bonnie, who is the CEO of COABE. We have Selena and Annika from Full Capacity Marketing. And then we have our speakers today are Marilyn Pizzullo, the Associate Chief for Workforce Strategy from Indiana, Lori Kierstad Joseph, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Adult Basic Education for College and Career at Pima Community College, and we have Troy Garacki, the Policy Associate from Washington State Community and Technical Colleges Program, and Cheryl Hart, the Assistant Director of NASDA, is with us today also. And again, thanks to Selena and Annika for their great work from Full Capacity Marketing. So I'm going to turn it over to Sharon Bonnie now.
Thank you so much, Pat, and hello, everybody. It's just a pleasure to be with you today. Before I go any further, I actually asked Shaketa Thomas, who's our board president, who has just gotten on, just if she wanted to say a few words before we proceed. Shaketa?
Thank you so much, Sharon, for having me on. Just to share a couple of things. I'm just so excited to have all of you here, and I'm extremely excited with our partnership with NASDA, as we're looking to just showcasing the value of HSE. As you know, the HSE, or the high school equivalency, is prevalent in today's educational landscape, opening doors of opportunity for countless individuals. And as we gather here during Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, we recognize the significance of this credential in empowering learners to achieve their academic goals. So throughout this session, we will delve into various aspects of the HSE credential and impact on learner lives and the collaborative efforts between our organization, COABE, and NASDA to promote educational access and attainment for all of our learners. So again, welcome, and thank you so much for being here and participating in Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. I'll give it back to you, Sharon.
Thank you so much, Shaketa. And Shaketa's been an absolute joy to work with. We have just loved working with her as our board president. So I wanted to say just a few quick words. Many of you are probably aware this is our third campaign with NASDA. We've worked on Educate and Elevate, the National Public Awareness Campaign that won 6 International Davies Awards. And then we worked on Move Ahead with Adult Ed, which also won 2 International Davies Awards. And I only mention that because the common denominator, besides working with NASDA, was working with full capacity marketing. So I want to say thank you to Selena and to Annika, because I know they really hustled to help us on this project. We've been wanting to do this for some time. Really, what we'd like to do is help the field to do an even better job telling the story about how the HSE credential helps adult learners. So you're going to see today, we're going to review a campaign toolkit with a call to action that will include e-magazine content, a web page, PR efforts that we've made to date, as well as social media posts, so that we have a bank of social media posts that you can use. And we will also highlight 3 really innovative programs, so in Indiana, Arizona, and Washington State. We really look at you as the adult ed program advisors as the trusted advisors in the adult education system. And we really feel that it's going to be important to be able to tell about the great work that you're doing, the services that you're providing, and the type of providers that you are. We also wanted to share that there's some wonderful stats that they're kind of the best kept secrets in adult education. This is the number of adults served entering with the 9th grade level or higher in reading, math, and language arts, over 81,000 just in the fiscal year 2022. So thinking about all those adult learners. And then you can see the high school credentials that were awarded. Out of those 81,000, 73,000. So look at that success rate. I believe it's over 83% of a success rate there. And many more data points like this that you'll see in this specific campaign. So our point really was to showcase the success and show the great work that's being done in the field. To see that, for example, 45% of the graduates enrolled in post-secondary education within 3 years of graduating from an adult ed program went on, and they had a 90% success rate. So I'm going to now turn this over to Marilyn Pizzullo to talk about the great work that she is doing in Indiana. Marilyn?
Hello, adult education colleagues. I'm so excited to be here today. This is great stuff that we're going to share with you today, myself and some other partner states. But I'm going to start with Indiana and the Indiana adult education system. So we had significant challenges in funding in Indiana. We had not seen a budget increase in over 2 decades of state funding. And honestly, in the last biennium, they cut us 15% during the pandemic. So we were really trying to get our message out that we needed more resources to do the work that we love to do in Indiana and that we do very well in Indiana. During that same 2-decade period, Indiana, the state, authorized 2 additional adult serving programs, adult high schools, as well as a workforce diploma program. And we're funding those with significant resources. They also they never saw any of the funding reductions that we saw when we took the 15% cut. Also, because these were not AEFLA associated programs, they had fewer restraints. They were able to do fundraising, and they had a lot more resources available to advocate with legislators to obtain additional funding. And in the 10-year history of the adult high schools, they had continually seen increased numbers in their funding. So we had this great performance. We had this great program. We had measurable skill gains in the 60s. We're giving individuals credentials. We have a strong IET program, issuing high school equivalency diplomas, around 5,000 a year. And yet we're still seeing that our funding is cut. So when we had conversations with legislators and other key stakeholders, they looked at us stunned because they said, well, we give you more funding. We did last biennium, we gave you more funding. So there was clearly a confusion about Indiana adult education, the high school equivalency program, versus the adult high schools or the workforce diploma program. At the same time, many of you have probably heard the same comments from legislators about a push for evidence-based outcomes. Prove what your return on investment is. And so Indiana, during this last legislative process, knew that we needed to do a lot more work. Next slide. So we knew, number one, that we really needed to educate key stakeholders, not only on all of the different programs, but on the need for adult education and options of services in Indiana. Indiana has a little over 450,000 individuals without a high school diploma and a growing and significant ELL population as well. So we needed to give them those numbers, but we also needed to help differentiate ourselves from the other providers in the state. So what we're going to share is the outcome of that, and I will tell you before I'll give you the end result. We were able to get a $12 million increase in funding, but it took a lot of work from our state IAACE partners, our state organization partners, as well as the Department of Workforce Development, to message this consistently and help delineate and show what we were doing versus what other programs were doing. I'm also going to pause and say really quickly, this was not fund us, don't fund them. This was a campaign around, there are a lot of needs in the state. We need to fund all of these needs, but we in particular need additional funding because we haven't seen any increases in many years. So what I'm going to share with you is a template, and we're going to come back to this at the end, I believe. But what I will tell you, in creating the template, we were instructed to keep it simple and concise at 1 page or less for legislators. Any more, and they would lose interest. The next thing is to make sure that all the data could be verified by a third party. So cite your sources. Don't, any data that you use with legislators, make sure that you can back that up, especially if you are using data that's not your own. Add no opinion. This was just the facts, ma'am, just the facts, and let the data speak for itself. And then when you come up with a template or consistent data to use, share it with advocates for statewide use and get their buy-in that everybody is going to use the same set of data. So I will now show you a bit of the template that we created. And yeah, so we felt it was important that they understood where the legislation was coming from. So what was our guiding legislation? Who governed these, the different programs? So there was a lot of confusion around, well, don't you oversee adult high schools? No, we do not. We had no say in adult high schools. We gave them the funding that we received at that time. And you can see significantly higher for the adult high schools. We also made it clear to them the number of locations to show our penetration across the state and our ability to serve in all 92 counties. And this is where it got really, really special. We were able to show our average time to completion. We were able to show our total enrollments, our graduates, a cost per student, a cost per graduate. So that was pretty significant. Again, I'm not promoting any one program, but you can see here there's clearly a difference in the money that's being invested in adult education versus the other programs and the outcomes as a result. So with this, again, end result, we were able to get additional funding, and I would encourage you at the end, you're going to get a blank template like this to think about doing this with your partners across the state. And with that, I believe I pass it on to our colleagues from Arizona. Lori?
Wow, thank you, Marilyn. I personally can't wait to get my hands on that template as well. Hi, everybody. Lori Kirsta Joseph here from Pima Community College. I lead our Adult Basic Education for College and Career, or ABEC, program at Pima. And I'm thrilled to be here today to share a little bit about one program model where we've had some great success. We are a large adult ed program, typically about 4,000 learners per year, and about half of our students are immigrants and refugees who are seeking English as a second language to get their skills up for college and career, and the other half are seeking adult basic ed programming to get their GEDs to earn a high school equivalency diploma. And what we know is that, if we can stay on the first slide for just a moment more. What we know is adult learners reach out to adult ed programs because they have a need to upskill and to improve their circumstances for themselves and their family. But they not only want to learn English or get their high school equivalency diploma, but they want to go on to some career training to get a better job and ensure family sustaining wages. And they don't have a minute to waste, right? They need options that accelerate them toward their educational and career goals. Typically, a learner in the past has had to start with high school equivalency diploma before they could go on to college. And that meant that adult learners had to complete their high school equivalency before going on. This first then process slows learners from reaching their goals. Even though in adult ed programs, a learner can progress through multiple years of educational competencies in just 1 year, having to wait until they've gotten that HSE before starting college really delays their progress. And honestly, we see lots of students who do complete the GED and get their high school equivalency diploma, but we wanted to see more learners than have been doing so transitioning on to college and career. So to increase adult learner access and transition to post-secondary education, and to strengthen adult learner success in college level education, Pima started working on developing programming that would strengthen that transition process and expand access to college and career. Next slide. So at Adult Basic Ed for college and career, at PCC, we have a career pathways framework that integrates career exploration and career training throughout our adult ed program so that a learner can begin to access career training while they are working on building their basic skills. Next slide, please. The career pathways framework at Pima includes IETs, or integrated education and training models, that integrate basic skills and career training leading to level 1 post-secondary or college level certificates. And we call these IETs IBEST at Pima, integrated education and skills training, a name that we pulled from Washington State, and you're going to hear from them in just a minute. Over the past decade at Pima, we've built multiple IBEST programs within 3 high employment sectors: applied technology, health professions, and business and IT. And in IBEST, adult learners are able to build skills in reading, writing, math, and English within the context of and at the same time that they're studying in a post-secondary career technical ed or CTE program. And we are only able to do this through a collaborative model where adult ed and CTE and workforce system partners work together to support learners. The coursework is co-taught with career tech ed and adult ed teachers co-planning and working together to provide in-class instruction. And IBEST partners also work together to provide the wraparound supports that help learners address and overcome any potential barriers. Our IBEST programs enroll any and all learners who need to strengthen basic skills and be successful in their learning, whether they're learning English or they are seeking a high school equivalency diploma, or even if they have a high school diploma but still need to strengthen some basic skills. So in this collaborative IBEST model, programs are built within a sector pathway with strong local employability and stackable credentials. And we integrate the basic skills with career training, and we provide the wraparound supports, which means that this IBEST model meets the definition of career pathways as laid out in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA. This means that learners who are still working to achieve their high school equivalency diplomas are able to leverage federal financial aid to help pay for their college costs through the ability to benefit provision. So ability to benefit, or ATB, allows learners who do not yet have a high school equivalency diploma to use that federal financial aid as long as they are enrolled in a career pathways program. So between ATB and our partnership with WIOA Title I workforce system partners, learners in IBEST are able to attend college without paying out of pocket. We have found that this integrated IBEST model helps adult learners to access career training at a higher rate and helps adult learners to succeed in completing a post-secondary certificate at a higher rate as well. So on the next slide, you'll see that our outcomes are strong, right? 75% of IBEST learners complete the certificate within the program year. 80% of HSE seeking completers successfully pass the GED test to get their high school equivalency diplomas, and 80% of completers are able to enter employment. These outcomes are much higher than the national average for community college completion rates. And this is evidence that adult learners, even those that are still building some basic skills, are capable of excelling in college level work. Actually, interestingly, while we work to make sure every single learner achieves that high school equivalency diploma before completing their post-secondary certificate, in some ways, the GED is the more challenging part of the program. We have even seen that some learners who are successful in completing the college level cert will still need some additional study and support to then finish passing all of the GED tests. And I think this is a testament to the rigor of the GED test and the high school equivalency diploma. So we've only been able to achieve these strong outcomes through robust, successful collaboration where partners work closely together to plan, implement, and evaluate for continuous improvement. So really, we've had to strengthen local partnerships with our workforce system partners, our community college partners to make this possible. But when we do collaborate, learners succeed. And if I can just share one quick student success story before I hand it on, I want to share about one of our building construction trades or BCT IBEST graduates. This is a woman who struggled when she was a child in school and a teenager, and she fell on hard times and had to step away from her learning. And she returned to school as a mother of 6, entering our adult ed program, looking to get her GED and high school equivalency diploma. She heard about the BCT IBEST from one of her math classes and liked the idea of getting career training while she was still working toward her GED. She thought of it as sort of a 2-for-1. And she picked building and construction trades electrical level 1 cert, really for the practical skills that she would learn because she had some needs to do some things around her house to fix electrical problems. And what happened was she excelled in the program. She figured out over the course of the first year in her level 1 cert that she could be a learner and that she was a fast learner and she was good at teaching others the things that she had learned. She passed her GED test in the first semester. She got her high school equivalency diploma and completed her level 1 cert all in 1 year. And while most IBEST grads will transition on to employment, this student is continuing on toward her level 2 certificate and her associates with the goal of transferring on to the university to get her bachelor's in education. She wants to become a teacher, to be able to help youth like her maybe make slightly different decisions than she did when she was younger. So IBEST helps adult learners like this learner to access and succeed in post-secondary education and to get them launched onto strong career pathways. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to, I think it's Troy, to tell us a little bit about what's going on in Washington State.
Lori, hello everyone. Thanks for having me here with you today. My name is Troy Garacki, and I oversee adult secondary completion in Washington State. So some of the challenges that we were facing and wanted to figure out ways to implement solutions for was accelerating students through post-secondary education and training. So really taking our students that entered with us, whether they were English language learners or adult basic ed students, and getting them into and through post-secondary as quickly as possible to move on to their goals. We want to do increased secondary education credential attainment, so making sure that as many students as possible had that secondary credential, which really ends up being a gatekeeper to a lot of whatever their next steps might be. And then we also wanted to make sure that there was access to both state and federal financial aid for all of our students, even those that didn't yet have a secondary credential. So those were really the issues that we were looking at and trying to find solutions for. Next slide, please. So these are the solutions that we came up with. And I don't think Washington State can have a talk about our success without talking about IBEST, which is our flagship integrated education and training program. And it has three components that are really essential to making sure that students can be successful. The first is contextualized education. So it's really making sure that all of those skills that they need to work on are being taught, but they're being taught in the context of either a professional technical program that they already have an interest in, or in a post-secondary academic based program. So they're learning those foundational skills, they're having that support, but it's also in the context of things that they have a stronger interest in and have a better time being able then to connect those skills and see the uses of them. The second aspect that's important to IBEST is the team teaching component. And in Washington State, there's actually a requirement that there be at 50% or more overlap in the classroom between the content instructor, the individual teaching the professional and technical skills or the specific academic skills, and the adult basic education instructor who's really helping with that scaffolding and foundation, so that really they're, as students are picking up new skills specific to the programs that they're interested in, they're also getting that scaffolding and support from a really talented adult basic education instructor, so that they really can cement it and make sure that they're getting that support they need to be able to pick up those skills and move forward. And then finally, all of the IBEST students get wraparound navigational support. So there's a lot of really close connection with each one of those students as they're moving through their program. And then there's an ability to early on pick up any kind of barriers that might be arising, whether those are academic, and then getting those students connected to additional supports to help with that, or if they're financial, something that would make a student need to stop their education, stop out so they could take care of those. We're able to identify all of those obstacles early and then connect those students with the supports that exist within the colleges to make sure that those students are able to get past those barriers and then continue with their education. Another solution that we implemented was, if we could go back to there we go, was High School Plus. So that is our competency-based high school completion program. And it also rests a lot on contextualized instruction. So those math and reading skills being taught in the context of all of the other subjects that fall underneath a high school completion program. So science, history, electives, all of those things, helping the students to be able to see the connections between those skills and then also accelerate through towards that diploma, that credential. And then also in that program, we focus a lot on also life experience. So not just the credits that they get for things that they've done in the classroom, either with us or before they came to us, but also looking at all of the other things they learned outside of a classroom and figuring out how those match up with outcomes that exist, whether that's past employment, child care, any of the other things, hobbies they have outside, figuring out how those skills really meet up with outcomes that exist and gaps in their transcript, and then helping the student work to really articulate how those skills met those outcomes, and then document that in award credit. And so that is actually a way both to accelerate the student towards that credential, but in addition also make sure that they have the language and like the realization that they actually came to us with a lot of strong skills, as opposed to what maybe they've been told in the past. And then finally, to take care of that last challenge we were facing, we implemented a state option for ability to benefit that really combines those first two strategies. So in Washington State, the student who is co-enrolled in IBEST and High School Plus automatically qualifies in that first quarter for both state and federal financial aid to pay for their tuition and any other things that come along with that in the program. So this allows a student to be working on completing their secondary credential, which they'll probably need in employment moving forward. They'll be working on completing a post-secondary degree as well, and seeing a lot of connections and overlaps between those two programs. And then just being able to have the sorts of supports they need that all students going through college have, and then they're able to do that. So that's really made it so that our students who are taking advantage of IBEST, even if they don't come in with a secondary credential, have the ability to access financial aid for that support, and then move through and earn both their secondary and post-secondary credentials and diplomas without needing to struggle and figure out how they're going to actually fund those programs. Next slide, please. So the outcomes kind of speak for themselves. So IBEST serves 6,000 students annually in Washington State, and those students that are enrolled have a 14% higher completion rate than students entering into post-secondary education and any other instructional methods in the state. So whether those are students coming straight out of high school or students re-entering after some other some other pathway, the IBEST students completed a much higher rate and moved through much more quickly. high school plus students, while there are only 15% of the students that are enrolled in basic education for adults in Washington state, they account for 88% of any of the secondary credentials that are earned. So they're really going through, and if they're connected with that program, they're obtaining that credential and then being able to move on to whatever their next steps are. And they're doing that at a much higher rate than any of the other pathways that we have for obtaining a secondary credential in the state. And then finally, when we look at our state ability to benefit students, so not all of them, but the ones that are specifically utilizing that state option of co-enrollment in IBEST and High School Plus, they're earning measurable skill gains at a rate 20%, 26% greater than the general rate of measurable skill gain attainment in the state. And so I think these really do show that when students are given an opportunity to use these innovative instructional models and to really accelerate through towards what their goals are, they really are able to demonstrate just how exceptional they are as students. So I think with that, I'm turning it back over to Selena, I believe.
Thank you so much, Troy. I am just so excited to hear all of these stories and also be a part of this campaign. We're going to move now into the campaign toolkit, and everything that Annika and I are going to describe in the next few minutes can be found at coabe.org/impacts that count, which is the name of this campaign. If you have any questions for our speakers so far, make sure you load them up in the Q&A or the chat. We'll pick them up one way or the other, and we'll leave ample time at the end for Q&A. You know, when I hear all of this, this campaign is really about building a business case of support, not only through the numbers, but through anecdotal stories and, you know, real person, the mom of 6 that Lori shared with us. So the campaign toolkit that we put together is going to help you tailor the information for your area. What are your successes? What are your innovations? And we want to hear them. And then also using the tools to be able to forward out this information to legislators, to key influencers, to your community at large. So one of the first things we did at this URL, and Sharon, if you can go to the next page, if you can switch to the next slide, that'd be great. Thank you. And you can see that on the landing page, we have just one straight landing page and one page for innovations. You'll see the buttons that are located on the bottom of the mural there. And again, it's tailored specifically for this campaign. I'll go through each section and talk about what is in here and how you can utilize it. But this is the homepage look and feel. And again, it's coabe.org/impacts that count. And Michelle put that in the chat box. Thank you, Michelle. So go ahead to the next slide here. And what we'll see, you know, numbers matter, numbers count. And you can see that Maryland, in particular, and Indiana, had to build a business case of support that not only resulted in $12 million of funding, but, you know, it's really explaining what they do and why they do it really well. So we put together in this landing page some statistics here that we think will be very valuable, and also retooled them into social media posts for you to easily share out. But this really explains the high school credential, how it equates to both employment and earnings. So we have up to speed, up to you know, real-time data here for you. And again, you'll be able to retool these, and you may even have some local data you want to put in and add to this. So this is the next section of the page. If you go to the next slide, you keep scrolling down on the website. We have evidence-based impacts that count, which is the whole theme of the campaign. And what we talk about here is that while your system in adult education is highly accountable under WIOA, with a lot of reliable and relevant data being collected, there are some additional funding measures. We've got kind of a teaser there, and it's Read the Full Story, which goes into the full e-magazine report that you can also share. Next slide. We also have here the innovations for adult learners. So there's two things on this. One, you in the field can submit an innovation to COABE so that we can put you on the website as well. Very simple to submit in that you submit your challenge that you had, the solution you brought to the table, and any outcomes or measures that you can share. Those kind of stories have a cumulative effect on legislators and your community at large. And what's great about us being a system is that you all can share each other's stories to leverage each other's impacts as well. The innovations from the field link, if Sharon, if you go to the next slide, that takes you to a landing page that looks like this. And all of our presenters that we had here today has a narrative about their story as well as a link to learn more. We want to see your stories on here. We started with these three just kind of as examples, but we have the submit button, and this is as an example for you. So we really want to hear from the field. It's these stories and numbers that are going to make a huge impact in how everyone looks at the impacts of adult education in general. And then the last slide, go ahead here. Oh, the next slide. Yeah, let me turn this. This is a great slide. I don't want to bypass this. Annika's been doing a lot of work around public relations because we want to really spread the message on a larger scale. So we've just started this process. So Annika, can you kind of walk through this and share what you've been doing to date and what we have to.
Absolutely. Thank you, Selena. So today, what we've done is send out a press release that really spoke about the National Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, Teen Up this campaign, because we wanted to send this out to tease it up before the Impacts That Count was actually available as a resource, which it now is for all of you. So we have the press release that we started with. We'll be doing other press releases and now using this campaign as a pitch point. And your stories really help us to seed the media. They want to hear these human interest and impact stories. So the more stories we get into that link that Selena was sharing, the better. And then Sharon Bonney was on my podcast, Your Brand Amplified, which really focuses on work on education and entrepreneurship and the skills people need to have to be successful in the workforce. That was released on Friday, and we have many more podcasts teed up. We really want to have Sharon out there spreading the word about these campaigns, why adult basic education is so important, why the work that y'all do through WIOA is so important, and building up that case. And all of this will lead to more press and SEO. And Sharon also has an article coming out that I'm in the editing process for right now. So we have a lot of really great things that you will also be able to use as more fodder for your local, regional, state initiatives, as well as our national initiatives.
I will tell you, I will tell you, Annika, that when I listened to Sharon in that podcast, I've worked with Sharon for years and years and years, but hearing it kind of in that whole story format, and it was great because it was short, like 26 minutes or something. But I got so much out of that, even knowing Sharon and her background, and I felt re-inspired all over again. And that's the hope here, is that the more we put out in the media, the more you all put out at the local level, again, that has a cumulative effect. So for sure, leverage everything that's on the landing page here. And then Sharon, if you go to the last section here, this is the section for you. As you scroll down to the bottom of the landing page, you'll see when you jump on there, there's sort of 4 kind of toolkit items that I'll go a little bit more deeply into. One is sharing your innovations with us. The second one is Marilyn's template that she shared with you, and we include the case study of Indiana so you can kind of get a sense of what that is. And then a bank of social media posts and graphics, and then forwarding what we're calling the e-magazine, but it's a HSE credential report to your key influencers. So let's just take a quick run through of these tools so you get a sense of what they are. And Sharon, you can go to the next slide. And the first thing, if you go to the website, it'll say, read the full story into this spread, this e-magazine, if you will. It's a beautiful PDF that you can share with all your key influencers, and it tells the story with the data. So I've just pulled a couple of key pages out here. You can go to the next slide. This is the home page or the home cover, and here are those additional 4 measures that we had talked about earlier. Sharon, did you want to go into these at this point? I know these are really important, and I feel like you're best one to tackle this.
Thank you so much, Selena. Yes, I mean, these are just really exciting numbers to share about. And I think one of the things we heard from Marilyn that she really put an emphasis on is make sure that the data that you share is solid and that a third party can validate. So that's the first thing I would say, is that everything that's in this campaign is verified, and we know it's really good data. So what we're trying to do, first of all, is look at the fact that we know that the HSE credentials issued as performance outcomes and performance standards only count high school completion if other outcomes are achieved. So what this means is that, you know, in order for it to be counted, someone, when they come in, they have to have gotten at least 12 hours worth of services and gotten a job or gotten into community college. So oftentimes, maybe someone only gets 8 hours of services, or maybe, you know, they're with the program a lot longer than that, but they're not able to count. The program isn't able to count when they transition into their job for whatever reason. Maybe the learner doesn't stay in touch with them. So that's been an issue that we've been trying to deal with. Also, of course, looking at the implementation of integrated education training, just looking at how we need to do a better job of documenting that as well. Additionally, the revision of national high school equivalency assessments to align better with the current high school graduation standards. That's been an ongoing issue. And then the addition of numerous state designated secondary credential options, making HSE credentials more relevant over the past decade. So we're really looking to find ways to uplift the great work of the adult ed programs and to mitigate these areas where there have been concern over the past few years that Pat and I have met many times on Right Pat and talked about these issues and concerns that we've had. We've talked to Octave, we've talked to legislators as well.
Thank you, Sharon. And then the next slide too, we had talked about as a group, I think is a good one for you to review as well. And Marilyn brought this up about how HSE testing, the changes that have taken place, and that it's quite rigorous. So why don't you take this one too?
I'm happy to, but I also know that Pat Tyler would usually likes to talk about this. So Pat, would you like to say a few words about this before I proceed?
Sure. As most of us in the field know, that the high school equivalency testing, the standardized testing that we're familiar with, has undergone tremendous changes over the past decade, starting with when the GED testing service started putting the test on computer. But in addition to that change, there was a review of standards and an assurance that the high school equivalency test had met the rigor for current high school graduation standards. So we've had other standardized, nationally recognized programs as well. There was TASC, which is no longer in effect, but there's also PSI now is owning the HiSET exam. And then there's the National External Diploma Program. All of these post-secondary options that are nationally recognized have undergone a lot of rigorous updating over the past decade to make sure that they mirror the current standards for high school graduation. High school equivalency testing credentials are accepted by most colleges and employers that we've surveyed. And again, you know, COABE has sent out some surveys, and we've talked to employers. So colleges and employers, we just want to generally say, are accepting of the high school equivalency measures. You know, in addition to our programs offering these standardized assessments, there have been a lot of state recognized credentialing options that utilize some of the test scores, but may have some other types of, you know, credit examinations that they can use, or, you know, previous credits earned or college credits for high school credit. So there's a lot of rigor applied to the high school equivalency preparation and credentials that are issued, you know, for Adult Education and Family Literacy Act students. So I think that this is a really important thing to understand. You have 8 bullets here that you should familiarize yourself with when you're in conversation. But I think one of the important things, and this goes back, I've been in adult education for a long time, so sometimes it's been necessary to defend the validity of our high school equivalency programs as really a measure of high school equivalency comparable to the skills that students are getting the traditional way. So any questions we'll be happy to answer at the end of the program. Thank you.
And I think, Pat, to your point, one of the things that oftentimes employers do not realize is that this has been aligned to college and career readiness standards. So I just think that's a really important point for people to realize. There was a day people said, oh, it's just the GED. Well, it's not. It's been aligned to college and career readiness, and it's not just the GED. There's a number of other tests as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for adding that depth and context for everyone. And again, these are just excerpts from magazine. It is short. It's like 8 pages. You know, we try to make it as concise as possible. And the whole idea is to push people in to this e-magazine to get them to read it and understand it. And with that in mind, if you go to the next slide, one of the tools we're using to do that is to create sound bites, and do those sound bites through social media posts. So on the right-hand side, you see here, you can download the website, is a guide. It's a social media post bank. And you'll see here that it gives you background, it gives you a link for graphics and hashtags that you can use. But not only that, we've gone a step further and put together ready-made posts for you that pull all of the data we've been talking about from that e-magazine into succinct posts that you can share on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, which is now X. So it's ready-made, as well as the graphics. There's a graphics link in there that will take you to a Dropbox. And I put a smattering of these on the slide so that you can see. I mean, these are just beautiful to share. People get the snapshot within a second. So if we all pull together and do this during this AEFL week, you can see it can make a huge impact in telling our stories, no pun intended. So then we also have, we've broken it down into the types of posts. I just want to share this quickly with you around this, around services that the adult education system provides, looking at supporting the workforce, and also different innovations. So we've highlighted the 3 in posts that we talked about today from the various states, but you put yours in, you put your data in. There was a great Nicole Worley has said that her HSE grads often place higher in college placement tests than high school graduates straight from high school. So Nicole, that's a great story to tell locally with your data. So put your own flair on it. We're just trying to make it easy for you here. And then we also have some calls to action. I know some of you on the call cannot really go to the Hill and advocate for your cause, so to speak. Some of you can and make some specific asks. So we've broken those out. If you want to go in for specific asks for funding, by all means, there's posts and things there for you to share. If you can't, and you just want to share about the programs more generally, that's fine too. Annika, did you have anything else on the social media? Okay, fantastic. So Sharon, you can go to the next slide here. And the last is submitting your innovation. We talked about that, how important it is. We would love to see your innovations. And the next slide to do that, which is Maryland's data template. So if you go to the next slide, Sharon, there's just a Word document there. We took Madeline's template. We have her model on the second page so that you can follow along sort of what she did. And then we have 3 columns here around adult ed, your adult high schools, and then any other secondary diploma program so that you can do a side-by-side comparison. What we love about Maryland's template is that it's so fast, quick, and an easy snapshot. So well worth the time. Okay, let's wrap up with calls to action on the next slide, and then we can take questions. I'll punt it over to Cheryl after this. So what is your calls to action? Your call to action is to go to the website, coabe.org/impacts that count, to view the campaign and download the toolkit. You're going to grab those social media bank posts, especially during AEFL week, the hashtags we use, and the graphics to let legislators know about the Impacts That Count campaign. And you're going to share the e-magazine link with legislators and key influencers. You can use the data template to build your business case of support for your state or local area, and also submit your innovation so we can share out on the campaign website. Right now, again, we have just the 3 speakers that we had today, but we'd love to see you on there as well. I also want to announce that storytelling is just such a big part of what we do, or what we should be doing. I know as adult educators, you're like, gosh, my passion is in the classroom, right? Not necessarily telling these stories, but it really has become more and more a necessity in terms of really getting your deserved share of funding and recognition. So COABE and Full Capacity Marketing are teaming up, and we're rolling out a series of 4 communications webinar, and it's really to help you build a value in your adult education brand and become expert storytellers, hopefully without a lot of heavy lifting on your side. So we'll be announcing that this month with COABE, and they'll start in October. So I just wanted to share that as well. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to turn it back to Cheryl so she can get us through the Q&A.
Thank you, Selena. We have had a few questions in the Q&A part, and they've been answered in there. One of them has a follow-up. So it was asked, are HSE seekers testing at NRS levels 5 and 6 on all 3 assessment subjects? And Lori, you answered that question for Pima. Can you address whether it's all 3 assessments or 1?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for the follow-up question. So generally speaking, yes, they're testing at levels 5 and 6. I will say that to maximize opportunity, there have been times where, for example, if the language assessment is a little bit lower, but their math is strong, and their reading is strong, that they could get in without all 3 subjects being at that level. We really analyze what skills are needed, and make sure that we aren't limiting it based on only a test score if there could be a little wiggle room. I hope that helps answer the question.
Thank you. Someone made the comment that both HSE and GED have college-ready cut scores, which allow graduates to enter credit-bearing classes without a qualifying placement test. So I think that's a good comment to pay attention to. And then David Downs, you asked about Penn Foster testing. Are you able to unmute and say more about your question there? I'm not quite understanding. Okay, I guess, can someone unmute? Let me see. I'm not sure that.
There we go. Okay,
there
here I
go.
am.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Penn Foster is a long time online adult ed program for people to get diplomas and so forth. And we've kind of gone back and forth in Connecticut about whether they are really at the same level. They do get a middle states accreditation, and then also a DEAC accreditation, which is Department of Ed for national benefits. I just wondered if, people have had, at the same time, we've had issues on whether students getting that diploma have really satisfied requirements and able to go on to higher education.
Do you know, David, is there data on the outcomes for Penn Foster? Do they report outcomes? Is that data available? And I'm just wondering if that template from Indiana could be used to compare, WIOA system to a program, something such as Penn Foster. I actually hadn't heard of Penn Foster before. So.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I know it's been, they certainly defend themselves and say they are, but I'm not sure what the data is out there. It's been a few years since we've kind of gone back and forth on this. I just wondered if there was an input on that.
If anyone has any input on that, if you could raise your hand, or I think we could take additional questions now. If you want to raise your hand and someone can unmute you. I think is it Sharon that's doing the unmuting?
Yes, I can unmute, but I'm not seeing anybody raising their hand. Maybe I'm just missing it.
Okay. The one thing that I wanted to just mention, I think it was so interesting to hear from these three states and from Selena and Pat and Sharon. We're excited to finally be rolling out this marketing campaign and being able to roll it out during Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. But this is a campaign that will go beyond this and can be used, for well beyond throughout the year. So I just wanted to make that point. Well, I'm not seeing any additional questions. There were a couple of them that were answered in the Q&A part, so you can take a look at that. The website that Selena, that's on the screen right now, is also in the chat that you can just click on and go directly to. It's also in the Q&A. So, Selena, I'll turn it back over to you to finish us off.
Actually, I'm going to punt to Sharon.
Okay.
We're punting today.
Great, thank you all. Well, I just want to, in closing, again, thank all the panelists here, the organizations that they represent, and thank you, the members in the field, for joining us. During National Adult Ed and Family Literacy Week, we are just really excited and delighted to be showcasing innovation, success, and as well doing all that we can to help the field speak up for themselves and speak out about the great work that they're doing. So this really was an opportunity to do that. But I want to remind you that tomorrow, I'm going to segue real quickly here. Tomorrow we have the podcast, the Rise and Shine podcast, from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then all throughout the day, we're going to have a Twitter/X day where we are going to be posting out and encouraging folks to reach out to the legislators. And you can actually use information that you're finding here in this Impacts That Counts campaign. You're welcome to share those out with legislators as well. And then all throughout the rest of the week, there are a number of activities. So I hope that you're enjoying and amplifying Adult Ed and Family Literacy Week. We have a national Padlet that you can contribute what you're doing there at the local and state level. And then we'll be able to have a huge overview or picture of what the field is engaging in. So I see Pat turned on her camera. So I'm going to turn this over to her and say thank you to everybody for joining us. Pat?
I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today, to encourage you to contact us if you have any questions about the campaign going forward, and keep in touch. And again, thank you so much to COABE and to Full Capacity Marketing for helping us put this together. So everyone have a wonderful day and a wonderful Adult Education and Family Literacy Week.